What do you think the church at Jerusalem thought about all this? There's not a one of us that there has not been some time in our life that we wondered what God was doing. We wondered why is this going on, why is this going on, correct? Not one of us has not gone through that. Okay? There was a cowboy who lived out west, and he decided he needed some life insurance. So he went to the agent and told him what he wanted. The agent said, "Have you ever had any accidents?" He said, No. He said, "I had a mule kick me one time. I fell off a horse one time. I got gored by a bull one time. I got bit by a snake one time." He said, you don't think that was an accident? He said, "No, they did it on purpose." Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. I hear a lot of, what goes around comes around. I hear people talk about karma and all that. Folks, there is no such thing. There's no such thing. What happens is God works. I refuse to believe that my life was governed by the stars, not where it was when I was born. That's condemned all the way through the Bible too. Okay? So here we see Stephen, and the first thing that I want to talk about, there are times that we do ask God why. Why did it happen now? Or the way that it happened, and all these questions that come up. But we want to look at Stephen because I think we can see a lot about God here through Stephen's life. Okay? And I also know that in a lot of those situations that I've seen, that God does some amazing things in the midst of those situations. One of the things I've learned about life is everything changes. Everything changes. We think something happened and that's the final say on it, and it's not. It's not, because God works. God works. Okay? So the first thing I want to look at here is Stephen's spirit. How would you describe Stephen? Spirit-filled. Okay, all this starts because as the church grows, there were Grecian widows, widows that were not of Jewish descent, they didn't feel like they were getting fed like the others were. So the apostles said that we're not going to take time to do this. We're going to get 7 guys, and we're going to get these 7 guys to help distribute the food so everybody is okay with it. And that's where Stephen is listed with another man named Philip that we'll talk about next week probably. So there is Stephen, and he is selected here to do what? Wait tables. Probably not the most spiritual thing that anybody's ever done. Right? But in the process of waiting these tables and helping these people, he started a conversation. Started seeing what was going on around him, and we see the service that he performs because of growing pains. Folks, one of the things that we need to look at whenever the church is growing, the church is changing, and there's opportunities to serve, that God is giving us that opportunity. It seems like a problem, doesn't it? That these people are not getting fed, but it changes into this great opportunity for the church, for these men to serve that have not served before. And Stephen is one of these people that is going to serve these tables. As he speaks, there's a disagreement that happens. That some of the Jewish people that he's talking to disagree with him, and so they take him into the Sanhedrin, which would be the ruling people of the Jewish court, and he defends not himself, but he defends his faith. He gives us a crash course on the Old Testament. Anytime you want to see the Old Testament put down in a very short period of time, Acts 7 that Stephen gives us is one of the best places to turn to. Okay? But he preaches. What's the reaction of the Jews? They're not listening. Okay? So what he ends up doing is that he brings it to a point here that he's going to make his point because he's not going to have another chance. You remember what he called them? Stiff-necked and uncircumcised. You know what he just called them? The highest rulers of the Jews, he just called them Gentiles. You never did obey God. You rejected God all the way through. And the reaction becomes very violent. So as he's preaching, he comes to this point. What happened? What was the reason? Let me get up to myself here. Here he's preaching, and he comes to the conclusion of the sermon. What happens? Anybody? You get angry at him. Okay? You know what happens? Saul happens. Saul is there. And he's going to be the one, when they said they laid their coats next to him, he's the ringleader of all this. He's the one that's got it escalated to a point where they're going to take Stephen's life because of this. He happened. You see, we see it everywhere, I guess, not just in religious history. If you can't combat the message, what do? You go after the messenger. What do you think Jesus was crucified? They couldn't stop what he was speaking, so we're going to stop him. We can't get Stephen stopped, so we're going to stop him. Do you think that Stephen knew the day he got up that day that this was his last day of life? That everything was over as of today? Do you think he had no idea? He had no idea, but he was willing to do that. There was I won't mention the man's name, a few years ago, I heard a preacher preach, and he got up to preach, and he said, every time I preach, this could be the last time I preach, is what he said. And then he announced that he had terminal cancer, that this was going to be the last sermon that he would ever preach in his life. What would you preach? What would you say? If you came back on. Dick Yuki, the minister that won me to Christ. I remember he had multiple myeloma cancer. He's 45 years old. It was costing him his life. In fact, the last time he preached was in a wheelchair because he wasn't strong enough to stand up. And I recall I went down, he lived in Joplin at that time. I went down to see him, and he said, Joe, there are times that I preached to people because I didn't think they had another chance to hear it. And now I preach because I may never have another chance to speak. That's where Stephen was at. He didn't realize that. Okay? He doesn't realize what is going to happen to him, and probably thought what happened to him would never happen. There's never been someone killed in the church before. Oh, they took the apostles in and they beat them and let them go, but that's as hard as it got. But this gets out of hand here. Gets out of hand, and here comes this moment of truth. Stephen has preached his sermon. He's looking at the crowd. They're not even listening. So now he's got to make his point, and that's when he makes his point. And what does the reaction give him? Okay? See, there's going to be a time, and it's coming for all of us, that in our Christian faith, there's going to have to be a moment of truth when it's time to either we put up or shut up. And we have to decide what we're going to do. If you wait till that moment to decide, you'll make the wrong decision. We have to decide before. Stephen decided before he wasn't backing down. That what he was sharing was the truth, and the truth was going to come out no matter what it cost him. How about us? What about in a moment that everything hangs in the balance? In a moment people are saved or lost by the words that we say. What's going to be our response? What's going to be the reaction? Are we going to blink? Are we going to run away? You see, it gets to the core of the truth here. It gets right down inside of these people. The biggest problem that these Jewish people had with his sermon is that they knew he was right. Their history recorded it right. Jesus himself states that. They killed all the prophets that God sent. They rejected everything that God had sent them, even his son. And now, because they were confronted with the truth, they've got to decide what happens, and it's Stephen's crowning moment. How he lived, how he died. And the church, I'm sure, is asking the question, how did God let this happen? He's a young man. Preached his first sermon. How could God let this happen? How many of us have ever asked that question? Okay? See?
The kids ask me that, I tell them we understood it.
Yeah, I don't know. See, what we have done, and I say we in general, what we have done, we have taken our faith in God and made it some kind of superstition. Well, as long as it turns out the way I want it to, God's good. Okay? I had a friend that he has cancer. He has gone through some treatment. He just received news that the treatment is working. He's regaining his health. And I saw on Facebook on several cases, I saw him yesterday and we talked, boy, God's good, God's good. My question, if he dies of this cancer, is God still good? And the answer is yes. See, we can't, if it works out the way I want it to, I hear people say that all the time, and it's something that just bongs around in my mind because there's nothing else there to stop it. A soldier goes to Iraq or Afghanistan and lives through his deployment there, but another one does not, and the guy that comes back, we say what? Boy, God was with him. He wasn't with the one that died. Okay? See, we don't know what God's will is. That's what we pray for. We have a habit of praying for what we want. They didn't want Stephen to die. I'm sure Stephen didn't want to die. But what was God's will? His will would have been for them to accept what Stephen said. Okay? But because of our evil, our wickedness, our rejection of God, that he is unable to do that at times, and we have formed this. If it happens the way I want it to happen, then God's there. But what if it doesn't work out the way we thought? Is God still there? Yes. Yes. He's going to take this and make something fantastic out of it. I've seen that happen over and over again. That people go through some very difficult times, but God is there. And if we'll allow him, he changes it. And it comes out to be something unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I've shared with you before that if it hadn't been for my mom's death, the way it was at that time, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you. That God he works through those things. Was it God's will that Mom die of cancer? I don't believe so. But he took that and could use it and make things happen the way that they are to happen. Romans 8:28. It is not a case of this verse whether it's true or not. It's a case of whether we believe it or not. For God causes all things to work together for good, for those who are them are called according to his purpose. It doesn't say everything that happens is good, but he causes the goodness that can come out of a lot of bad things. We think bad things. But God is there and he is still working his way through that. We see here that when in the video, and I believe it's true, that in verse 56, it says that Stephen looks up and what does he see? Remember? God and Jesus, very important, he was standing at the right hand of God. The word standing gives us the impression he's looking over. He's watching very closely what's happening. He hasn't walked away from Stephen. He's as close to Stephen as he was the morning when Stephen got up, even in the midst of what's happening. And we have to understand that God is with us no matter what. If I'm a Christian, he's with me no matter what. He's never going to turn away. And when things happen in my life I don't understand, that I can't quite grab hold of, wait. He causes all things to work together. It's not whether it's true or not. Do I believe that or not? And we jump at these things that the people say, let's pray for this person or that person. One of the things, and I'm not saying anything critical at all, but there are times that people are in tough spots and we pray for them to be free from that tough spot. But what if that's exactly where God wants them to be? I wonder. Okay? We are not looking at what God is going to do. We don't put our trust. We want it to work out the way we want it to turn out, and that is where we fail at. We have to look and see what God's going to work out, not just jump to some conclusion that this is good or this is bad. And finally, I put down Stephen's success. His success. How can we say that Stephen was successful? He died. Pardon me? Okay, he died for God's work. He's my brother. He's my right? He died doing what he believed was God wanted. See, we have to look and say, man, we've got to rethink some of this. If he is, in God's eyes, that Stephen was successful, what else matters? At the very end of our life, no matter what it is, what is happening here is Satan is trying to stamp out the church. Okay? And we'll see more of that next week, because the next verse says, and those that were run out of Jerusalem preached the word as they went. All at once, there's not just one church in Jerusalem. There's these small churches. And we're going to see Philip goes to Samaria next week and see what happens there. Gosh, wasn't it Jesus said that you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and the uttermost parts of the earth? Maybe the church wasn't going to go there on its own. Somebody needed to push it out, to go to do what it was supposed to be doing. Stephen, what happened in all of this? And here's what I really want to get across to you guys. In his wildest dreams, Stephen, in this one sermon and the stoning, I'm sure never understood that he was going to change the history of the world. And it's one little sermon. Because you know what happened? Saul happens. He is standing there and he persecutes the church. And I want you to see this screen, and this is one of the things that jumped out to me. In Acts chapter 8, verse 3, it says that Saul began to persecute them. Okay? Acts 22 and 26, he recounts his conversion experience. And when he speaks that, notice what he says to these people. 30 years later, after Acts 8, he says, and at the death of your martyr, Stephen. What was the turning point of Saul's whole life? You know what it was? Stephen. He saw his face. He saw how he acted. He saw all of this. Because in verse 26, or chapter 26, the last, it says, it is hard for you to kick against the goad. Something working on Paul. Something's really bothering him. And what is it? Stephen. So I said what happened to Stephen, Saul happened. But what happened to Saul, Stephen happened. And we have no idea what influence we have in the world in which we live. One person, we're going to look at Philip next week, another one person, and see the difference that was made in the lives of so many people. We have to decide that God's call is bigger than we are. We have to see that His will is far greater. I've been dumbfounded. I've been awed by the way I've seen God work in the lives of people and the things that have changed and how God has called them. In his wildest dreams, he had no idea that Paul becomes a Christian, basically being convicted by what he saw in Stephen. And all that he saw that was around him, he becomes a Christian. We will never know the impact of our lives. We will never know the influence that we have over people. All of us, not just some of us, all of us have an impact on other people. And that impact can be so great in such a short period of time, depending on what is involved in the situation. I've shared with you before, when Rich had his stroke and we were in Columbus, we spent every day in the hospital. It was unbelievable the impact that a few nurses had on our lives for the rest of our lives. 3 or 4 days. We'll never forget those people. We'll never forget this one nurse that walked Rich. The only one he trusted, not to let him fall. And the friendship that was developed there, I mean, it was unbelievable. We can do the same. We can do the same if we will make that decision that we're going to impact the people in our lives for Jesus and Jesus alone. I think Stephen would agree with the decision that if I have nothing that I'm willing to die for, then I don't have anything to lose. If my goals don't go beyond this life, then I have no goals. If everything that I do ends at my death, then I've missed life. I've failed to live life the way God intended. It goes on and on and on with the people that we impact. William Borden. I think we've all heard of Borden milk, food. When he graduated high school, he was the heir of the great Borden dynasty. He was a millionaire at 18. So to celebrate, I don't think I bought this for my boys when they graduated high school, but his folks gave him a trip around the world. Money was no factor at all. So that's what William Borden did. He took a trip around the world. He graduated from Chicago, Illinois up here. And he took a trip around the world. He went to Asia, he went to the Middle East and to Europe. But he saw all these people that were hurting in the world. So he decided that he was going to give up being heir of the Borden millions. And he wrote home and says, I'm giving my life over to prepare for missions fields. And in the back of the Bible, he wrote no reservations. So that's what he did. He began to prepare for the mission field. And finally, when he graduated, he had all kinds of job offers. He could have named the price that he was going to get as far as working for someone. But he rejected that. That he was going to go to Princeton, to study for missions field. And in his back page of his Bible, underneath, no reservation, no retreats. He wasn't giving it up. Okay? So he went to prepare for the mission field, and when he got ready to go, he wanted to go to China to work with the Muslims, but he had to stop over in Egypt to go to school to get all the preparation in order to go to China for the languages and everything. And while he was there, he was struck with cerebral meningitis. 28 years old, I believe, and he died. And when they got his Bible after his death, in the back page of that Bible, one last line, no regrets. That is what God is wanting from us. Make that decision. It doesn't matter what you show me to do, God. I'm going to do it to the end. I'm not going to turn back. I'm going to reject the things of this world, because as I get older, and boy, am I getting old, right, Jim? Boy, the material thing of this life just keeps fading away. I look at stuff and say, why? Why do I need that stuff? What's it going to do to accomplish anything in my life? And mostly it holds us back, I guess. But that we need to make that decision. No reservations. No retreats. No regrets for giving our life to Jesus. Look at Stephen. Look at Stephen. You don't think that there can't come a point in our lifetime that we look back and we have taught a young man downstairs, a young lady downstairs who becomes a missionary? That we haven't spoken to someone that's going to become very involved in some kind of congregation that's going to make a difference in the world in a great way. All because we answered God's call and we didn't stop until we had completed. Even if it cost us our life. Because Stephen lost his life, but I suggest that he gained his life by the sacrifice of Jesus. We're going to stand and sing He is Mighty to Save is our invitation song. But that we can influence this world as much as anybody ever has, as we stand and